Hey team, getting injured as a boxer, it's a nightmare. So today we're going to look at the common injuries. Remember, prevention is better than cure. So everything we can do to prevent these injuries happening, and some exercise at the end to help strengthen the areas that get damaged the most. Let's go. Hey team, welcome back to the channel. The most common injuries that us boxers or combat athletes tend to get are wrist and hand injuries. You might think it's concussions, but no. You can spend more time hitting a bag, hitting pads, and everything like that. So let's look at some things that we can do to prevent that, because getting injured sucks. You're out of training for a while, you can't train particularly well, you can focus on other areas. Just because you get injured doesn't mean you have to stop training. You can focus on other things. However, these are our money makers. Let's protect them. So let's have a look. So we need to protect our hands. This might sound like an obvious one. Always wrap your hands. There are a ton of videos on YouTube to do with wrapping your hands. There's some good ones, there's some bad ones. There's wraps that I like and other people go on there and say they're useless. I do two types of wraps personally. I use the one I'm going to show you right now, and also a more Thai boxing style one to give me a bit more padding on my knuckles, should I happen to have bruised my knuckles a little tiny bit. Hand wraps. I am not affiliated to this company. This is not sponsored at all. These are Rivals wraps. I really like these. They have some stretch to them. Personally, I think they're the most comfortable wraps you can get. There's plenty out there. Try them. And I like 4.5 meters, okay, because that gives me plenty of room to wrap with. And this is how I wrap my hands 90% of the time, and also how I wrap most people's hands who come and train here. Thumb loop, obviously, around the thumb. You want to go away from the thumb. There's a little detail on this that I think a lot of people miss when they're doing these wrap tutorials, and I'll show you what it is. I'll point it out when we get there. So away from the thumb. And I generally go 3 times around the wrist because I have plenty of material, and then come over the thumb. So one detail, before I pull that tight, close my fist and pull it tight whilst it's there. Back underneath the wrist, up over the knuckles, and I'm going to wrap my knuckles 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Then start making this crisscross on the back of the hand that we all see all the time. So as soon as I get through my thumb and finger, this is another point. Close your fist and pull that tight. Then underneath the wrist, up and over. I personally go in between the pinky and the next finger, outside of the thumb, and point the finger again, and again close my fist and pull that tight. This is preference. I generally go then to in between my first 2 fingers, out, close my fist, pull it over, then I go through the middle. Last one is through the middle. That's to lock the padding in place. Close my fist, put it nice and tight. Then go up and around one more time, wrapping the knuckles, securing in place. As I'm coming out between the thumb and the finger, close my fist, just make sure that's nice and comfortable. Then any materials left over, I do the wrist. Now, generally go up the wrist for what material's left. Then I come down the wrist towards the wrist line. If there's anything left over, I make another crisscross pad and I secure the Velcro around the wrist area. He says, not able to get the Velcro undone with one hand. Roll that tight, pull the material up to give yourself a little grip bar and free anything off. Just check that feels nice and tight, and that's a good solid secure wrap. I personally like that style of wrap, and I will show you the other wrap as well. So the other style of wrap I use is again a 4.5 meter pair of wraps. I've cut the thumb loop off these ones. What I want to do is make a nice secure padding on my knuckles. So what I do here, where was the thumb loop, I take a pinch between my finger and my thumb, possibly a little bit more, and open my fingers out and I make a nice wrap around that, and I go through that 4 whole times. Once I've done that, I let this material go and take this off my hand. That's given me a knuckle pad. And then secure that. What a lot of people do when they do this, they put it here on top of their hand and there's no protection on the knuckles. When you have your fist closed, that wants to be on the knuckles. Pinch it between my thumb and my finger, come underneath, secure it with my thumb and my finger again, and one more full wrap. Make sure that's nice and secure, that's where it wants to be, and I tighten it up. From there, we just start the crisscross on the back of the hand again. So I'm going down towards my wrist, and I don't go around my wrist at this point. This one's for my knuckles. Come straight up, through my finger, my little finger and my next finger. Make a fist. This is the key detail, making the fist, make sure it's comfortable. Again, preference, I go between my first two fingers, make a fist. Come up, middle finger, come up and over, and lock that whole lot in place. Again, I close my fist when I'm doing this, but I don't just do it like this. I close my fist to make sure that's locking that all in place. Now, whatever's left, I come back over the hand, go round the wrist once, come out over the thumb. Again, don't miss this detail. If you pull that tight now, when you go to close your fist, that's going to cut the blood off in your thumb. So, before you pull that tight, close your fist, now pull it tight, and finish up your wrap, up your wrist, how we done with the last one. Coming back down towards the wrist joint, you want the Velcro sealing over the wrist joint for added protection. And again, and I just open up from there, and that's quite a good bit of padding on the wrist, on the knuckles, should I happen to have bruised my knuckles slightly. From there, again, I just take the direction of the Velcro, put it round a little bit more to secure that nice and tight, and you have a good solid wrap. When your wraps get a little bit old, like these ones, I just get some gym tape once that's done and finish it off nice and tight. Nice solid protection on the knuckles, good detail on the wrist as well. That's the other wrap that I use to protect my hands. Equipment, boxing gloves. Now, I understand this is a channel for beginner boxers. You probably don't want to spend a load of money when you're first getting into it because it's like, oh, am I going to enjoy this? Am I going to keep it up? I understand that. Lots of people are exactly the same. However, make sure your equipment's in good working order. I appreciate there's a lot of people watching in America. I don't know what the conversion rate is at the moment, so I'm going to talk in pounds. These are a set of gloves that a lot of beginners choose to buy in this country. They're about £30. I don't know what that is in dollars or anywhere else. And they're okay. They're not great, they're okay. They will serve a purpose. At least make sure, I call this a double wrap. It goes underneath your wrist and on top of the glove. You do get a lot of gloves that just have a single wrap, i.e. it starts here and just secures the wrist. There's absolutely no wrist support whatsoever. Get rid of them. But they serve a purpose to begin with. But make sure your equipment is in good working order, and if it's not, get some new ones. And to be fair, decent boxing gloves aren't life-ending types of money. So two types. I happen to have a pro shop quite near me, and I do like Geezer's gloves anyway. They fit my hands very, very well. Velcro style ones, double wrap around, very, very nice, good padding. Make sure they're a good quality. Lace up gloves. I know they've got tape over, I'll explain that in a second. Lace up gloves. My favourite type of gloves for training are lace up gloves because they offer a wrist support that you can't get anywhere else. Most people who train here use Velcro ones because the type of training they do. They've got gloves on, gloves off, holding pads for someone else. If I'm doing a long workout, I will use my lace-up gloves, which are tight enough that I can get my hand in with a little help from someone else. And then I've taped them over as well. I've got no wraps on, so I'll go in easier. There's a huge amount of wrist support. I can hardly bend my wrist in them at all. So you're going to get good quality safety from there. Once you're down the line, you've got your fundamentals going, because once you start getting your body snap going, your body mechanics right, you are going to be punching harder. Upgrade your equipment. Make sure you have some good quality equipment, your hands are wrapped and you're ready to go. Let's move on. Also, excuse me. Also, you've got to think about prevention is better than cure. what you don't want to be doing is injuring yourself, then having to go through rehab. We can do things to minimize that. Wrapper hands, good quality gloves. Also, strengthening your wrists. There's plenty of ways to do it. Look at the Thai boxers, they're always doing their press-ups on their knuckles instead of folding their wrists like so. You'll find they do their tricep style press-ups quite close to their body, like so. On the knuckles, down. If they're working their chest a little bit more, it's more out here, down. And always doing their press-ups on their knuckles. That in itself will give you a little bit stronger wrists. Because when you first start, if you've noticed this, put it in the comments. When you first start hitting the bag or whatever, you feel a bit of sharp pain in your wrist because you're putting an impact through this area here. It's quite common. One, you do get used to it and you strengthen that area anyway, but help it. Start doing your press-ups on your knuckles. Looking to have these two knuckles here make the majority of the contact on the ground, not the other three knuckles. That's just going to make injuries worse. So that's one thing we can do. Dumbbell curls for your wrists. My dumbbells are over there at the moment, but might sound stupid. Strength and condition your wrists. Get a dumbbell, put it in your wrist and wrist curl it. Make that part of a routine. It doesn't take long. Make that part of your routine. Turn your hand over, curl it the other way. You can move it side to side in a hammer movement with a dumbbell. That's all going to aid in strengthening your wrists to help prevent you getting injuries. Another great one, we have a kettlebell. Hold the handle of the kettlebell. Roll it one side, roll it the other, and keep coming back. You want to be on a floor or a flat surface at this point, turning it over and over. That helps strengthen the forearms, the wrist, your grip, strengthen everything. They're all exercises that you should be adding to your weekly routine. And lastly, if you're finding that you're continually injuring yourself, it's a technique thing. You're doing something wrong. So it's a good idea to film yourself anyway, just to see the little micro things that's going wrong anyway. But it's quite common in beginners to, like on their hooks, bend your wrists like this, comes out and then bend the wrist. That's going to cause a wrist injury. Same on uppercuts. People tend to think that they drop their hand and then kind of curl the wrist like this. That's just an accident waiting to happen. Remember, you want structure behind the punch. The elbow is behind the punch. Same on the hook. The elbow is behind the punch. Make sure your elbow is horizontal to the ground. Whether you are thumb up or thumb towards you, don't want to be punching like this. That's a catastrophe waiting to happen. Don't want elbow high. That's a catastrophe waiting to happen. Jabs and crosses. Particularly if you're an elbow flarer, there's a chance that you actually cock your wrist on the way round to make a correction, so you're hitting with your knuckles instead of the side of the glove. Same thing, gonna roll your wrist. Backhand, same principle. If it's released wrong, it's probably gonna damage your wrist. Overhands, they're the ones. If you haven't seen how to do an overhand, I done an overhand video a while ago. I'll leave a link in the description below. But that backhand overhand, whether you're orthodox or a southpaw, that's the one that comes down and sometimes catches and rolls your wrist sideways. Painful, very painful. So to make sure you're doing that with as much good technique as you can, remember that's more rotation than is a swing. Have a check, have a look at all of your punches, just make sure you're doing them correctly. Good technique, stringent technique, do them slow, work through your punches, make sure everything's right. A good little trick for you to see whether you're doing it right is to throw a punch and isometrically hold it on the bag afterwards. Now I haven't got hand wraps on, so I'm not going to do it hard. In fact, I'll do it southpaw so you can see, because I am southpaw. So rather than go bang and pull your hand back, which you should do, you can make sure by going bang and isometric holding that bag just to see your knuckle placement, everything else is in place, your wrist alignment on all of your punches. Bang. Is everything right? Okay. So be diligent with your drills, wrap your hands, do some strengthening exercises. Prevention's better than cure. And don't get injured. If you do, have some time away from the bags, have time away from the pads, you can shadow box. We had a lady here, broke her fingers, turned up training. I was like, what are you going to do? She said, I'm going to shadow box. Cool. There's no reason why you can't carry on training if you hurt your wrist. Just give it time to recover. But remember, prevention is better than cure. Injuries happen, guys. It's just part of life. But there's a little look at some ways we can prevent it. Some strengthening exercises. Brought the trusty little kettlebell down. This is not the best thing to show it on, but what I was talking about is grabbing the kettlebell by the horn on a flat area and just controlled rotations through, nice and steady. Just build up the strength in that wrist. This is a 6 kilogram dumbbell. It's not particularly heavy in any way, shape or form. Use less if you need to. Any questions about further injury prevention, then let me know in the comments. Train safe, train hard, and I'll see you next time.